Brett Yormark and the Big 12 Conference did not have to do what they did to help out BYU yesterday, but the Cougars got a major assist from their conference and its commissioner.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer at the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about the Big 12 stepping up when they didn't necessarily have to help out BYU in the aftermath of what we experienced on Saturday night. We'll also catch up with Tavon Beasley, a guy who's got familiarity with Coach Prime, with the chants that were being uttered by this Colorado fan base on Saturday night, and also why he hopes to have a bigger impact going forward for the BYU football program. We'll get into that, and then we'll also finish up today's show talking about Big 12 men's basketball odds and where Kevin Young and the Cougars fit in that hierarchy. It's all brought to you today by our friends over at FanDuel. New customers right now can bet just $5, and if your first bet hits, you get $300 in bonus bets. Go to FanDuel.com and download the FanDuel app to get started today. All right, if you didn't see it yesterday, the Big 12 responded to the abhorrent, bigoted comments or chants that were uttered by Colorado's student section Saturday night, imposing a public reprimand and, most importantly, a $50,000 fine against Colorado for its fan behavior. Now, on its head, I appreciate the Big 12 stepping up here because for years, we're going back literally decades, there have been chants of a similar refrain, and you know what I'm talking about, coming from opposing fan bases. And more often than not, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, history suggests that it's been very rare to even see a public reprimand come from these universities that have had their fan bases chant such abhorrent things at BYU and its sponsoring institution, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, known colloquially, if I think I got that word right, Mormons. Now, the situation at hand here is BYU and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are currently in some pretty big headlines. Obviously, the prophet, our current prophet president, Russell M. Nelson, just recently passed away. That came literally minutes. The announcement from the church came minutes after BYU's win against Colorado, in which game we heard those chants of bleep the Mormons, among other things, bleep BYU. We even heard, if you saw the reverse angle of that big hit that Evan Johnson had, in that instance, he was getting bleep you Johnson being chanted at him by Colorado students. So a lot of bleep you coming from Colorado. But then also Sunday morning, as I mentioned yesterday, the horrific scenes, the violence that was perpetrated upon members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Michigan. Awful stuff. And it's got obviously a big prism or microscope on what's going on with the church at this moment. Brett Yormark and the Big 12 did not have to impose a fine. They easily could have put out a public reprimand and called it good. In fact, previous to this, a lot of the times the Big 12 has just been silent on the matter, allowing the individual universities, Oregon, USC, Providence, Arizona, Stanford, Utah State, to name a handful of the institutions who have had their crowds do such things, to issue statements essentially condemning what happened in those games. Colorado, to their credit, and to Deion Sanders, a.k.a. Coach Prime's credit, they did issue new statements apologizing for what happened Saturday night, and that came in the aftermath of the public reprimand and the fine imposed by the Big 12 Conference. The biggest thing I take away from this is the Big 12 stepping up to help a member institution like BYU that has got a religious mission and obviously attracts extra eyeballs due to said mission and its association with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. All of that is in play here. And I appreciate the Big 12 giving the Cougars and BYU an assist. The other side of it is $50,000 enough? Probably not, but here's the deal. I think under the Big 12's conference bylaws, $50,000 is probably the most they could impose in terms of that fine. Will there be inevitably other instances of this happening? I would almost guarantee it will happen. We have young, inebriated fans, in this case, Colorado students, as Coach Prime mentioned, who are probably both drunk and high simultaneously. And you know what? Things happen. young people do dumb things. Trust me. If I think back to when I was 18, 19 years old, probably doing some dumb stuff. Now, I also spent 2 years from 19 to 21 on mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I point to those 2 years as being absolutely a critical time to helping me grow up. And I think a number of you who may have served missions would agree with me on that assessment. Stupid things happen with young people. Former Washington and Boise State head coach Chris Peterson called 18 to 24-year-olds the dumbest age demographic in America. It's a direct quote. I can go pull it from our archives at the KSL Sports Zone. He said it on our airwaves. He's not wrong about that. Things happen. But to curb this going forward, what ultimately can be done? Because that's kind of been the topic du jour in the aftermath of this fine and reprimand being implemented. Can this really be imposed, and can there be enough punishment to stop it from happening? I don't know that necessarily you're ever going to stop it, but there needs to be more policing of this by the individual institutions that BYU will play. I can tell you, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I know when the Delta Center, which is up in Salt Lake City, it's the home of the Utah Jazz, now the Utah Mammoth. Many of you recall it's currently undergoing a renovation, but a few years, actually no, more than a few years back, there was another renovation of that building, and I worked in the building through that renovation. I know because people that would know and were obviously helping build it told us in no uncertain terms that there were enough cameras in the Delta Center with that renovation that they could, in high definition, zoom in on any individual in the crowd and essentially get a high resolution picture of said individual. Other sporting venues have such technology. Maybe they don't have it to the same level as a basketball arena, which is enclosed when you're at a football venue like Folsom Field, etc. But you can do a lot to police this on an individual basis if you're willing to. The other thing is you can make it very clear in pregame that such boorish behavior will not be tolerated. Now, I do know I was there at Colorado when they put it up on the big screen and read the fan code of conduct. It needs to be spelled out more explicitly as to what the rules are, I feel like, on that front. The other thing is you could do what soccer does. The Mexican fan base, the Mexican Soccer Federation, their fan base is quite fond of using a homophobic slur in Spanish that has been essentially outlawed. It has been, in no uncertain terms, explicitly stated by FIFA, the governing organization of international soccer, that if that term is used, Mexico's federation is supposed to be fined. They're supposed to play matches behind closed doors, all kinds of different things that have been threatened to be imposed there. That could also be in play here for BYU. And there's also separation of these two things. I was there at Folsom Field. I heard loud and clear F BYU multiple times. The F the Mormons chant came later on in the game. If they're going to chant F BYU, okay, that's a different story. That does not cross the line, in my opinion, as a journalist, as a guy who watches and covers BYU for a living, among other things. FBYU, you can say that about an institution. That is the free speech side of things. You can say that about an institution. But when you attack a group of people by saying F the Mormons, thereby attacking members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that's where it crosses the line. And that is where the Big 12 decided to step in, because it did cross the line. So is there any real good answer for this situation? Honestly, probably not. And I would expect that maybe as soon as next week at Arizona, because Arizona's got a track record of doing this against BYU over multiple sporting events, that maybe it rears its ugly head next week. Will the fines be more severe for Arizona if they do cross into that territory? TBD. But I can appreciate the fact that the Big 12 acted. They did not have to. And in fact, previous to this, they had been very slow on acting, if at all. So appreciate what the Big 12 did. And hopefully, in some small way, it does curb some of that crossing of the lines into attacking members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in future instances. They want to say FBYU, that's one thing. But when you attack members that of a worldwide faith, that's no go. That you cannot cross that line. And I appreciate the Big 12 essentially putting drawing a line in the sand and saying, there's the line, do not cross it. All right, so coming up next, we're going to move on to other topics. Now, it involves said topic we just talked about, because I asked this young man about that very thing. Tavon Beasley had a great conversation with this young man yesterday. He's got a really, really unique backstory that connects to all of this at every level when it comes to Colorado, Coach Prime, the fan behavior at Folsom Field on Friday night, but also he talks about what he hopes to accomplish in a BYU uniform and why it took so long, in his opinion, to end up as a Cougar, even though he thought he might be a Cougar sooner than this. We'll get into all that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. They deliver confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anybody else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings that same intention to how they craft every model of their vehicles. They have all-wheel drive standard in most every crossover SUV, so you can drive with confidence through almost any season, and you make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls with every vehicle in the Mazda lineup. Like our players, we sweat every single detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. It's all courtesy of your friends over at Mazda, where they like to say, move and be moved. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Most people cannot name all of their financial accounts. I can tell you right off the bat, I can't do it myself. Whether it's a 401k or multiple properties, investments, or anything else beyond that, when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money steps into the void, my friends. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that helps you bring your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. You're putting off organizing your finances. Monarch is for you. It does the heavy lifting for you, bringing all those accounts into one easy-to-see app. See clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally actually feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So take advantage of this with our friends over at Monarch Money today. Do not let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com using the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of your guys' support. The outpouring of messages that came in yesterday, really do appreciate it. And they came from all walks of life, from Colorado fans to diehard BYU fans, members who have stepped away from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in terms of their membership status, all of it. Appreciate all of the sentiment and thoughts you guys expressed yesterday after I got a little emotional about the situation BYU found itself in, and especially relating to everything that happened this past weekend. But thank you, as always, for supporting this podcast. It does mean the world to me, and I hope that many more of you will find it, enjoy it, and make it a part of your daily routine, because we like to say here on the Locked On Podcast Network, it is truly your team, the BYU Cougars, every day. All right, so before we move along here, Tavon Beasley is an interesting athlete. BYU picked him up out of the transfer portal via San Diego State, but BYU is, in fact, his fourth program that he's been a member of. Yes, you're probably thinking, okay, why is this kid skipped around so much? Well, I don't think it's necessarily all his fault, or I don't think it's necessarily he's a victim of circumstance. He explained in a one-on-one chat, we'll get to here momentarily, exactly what led him to finally ending up where he, in some cases, may have ended up had things worked out differently. Tavon Beasley had his very first offer, as you'll hear momentarily, come from Brigham Young University. And in fact, that offer came from BYU cornerbacks coach Gennaro Guilford, who is his position coach at this current time. We had a great chat, talked a lot about his time playing in and being around Coach Prime, speaking of Deion Sanders, and also what he hopes to accomplish moving forward now as a guy who's contending at that nickelback spot for BYU in their very vaunted defense under Jay Hill. All that and more here in an exclusive conversation with Tavon Beasley on the Locked On Cougars podcast.
Tell me about your journey to getting BYU in the first place.
When I was at Bosco, my freshman year, going into my sophomore year at Coach G, this was actually my first offer out of high school. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up going to Jackson State, as everybody knows, and then Colorado with Coach Prime, and then San Diego State. And then when I hit the portal again, G had contacted me again, and then we got a home visit scheduled. And then after that, after everything like he said and told my mom, like instantly, like when Coach G left, it was instantly about like the people and like the future after BYU. Like literally as soon as he left, she didn't even mention football. It was just like the people is good, like life after BYU and the people that's been there, all the coaches. So that's what really drew me here and really wanted me to come here. That's why I got here.
You talk about playing with Coach Prime at both Jackson State and Colorado. Was it different going up against him last week?
It was fun actually.
Okay.
Like all like the rah-rah noise, like he was telling us. I already knew, but because I played for him. But like it was fun actually, like seeing, and it was like nice seeing my old coach, like Coach Mathis, or his two sons, or the trainer. Like it was fun. It was just fun playing against him.
Okay, I got to ask you this question. We see a bunch of Coach Prime in terms of in front of the cameras, talking to the media, and like, is he any different behind the scenes?
Me personally, I would say yeah, but
Okay.
that's just something y'all got to experience. But I would say yeah.
Okay. Because the only reason I asked that is because today, obviously, with some of the chants that came out of their student section today, he came out and apologized for what was being said, and it seemed like a very stand-up thing for him to do because he didn't have to do that.
Well, yeah, he's a good person, but for the stance to chant that was like kind of out of line, so I'm pretty sure he had no choice but to apologize. But he is a great person. It's just like certain things that like I personally don't agree with, but he's a great person overall.
Now, you talk about your mom and saying, hey, like, go to BYU, check it out. What's the experience been like since you got here?
It's been good. It wasn't nothing was like really a culture shock or nothing new to me because my brother went to Southern Utah and so I've been to Utah and I've also played against Utah State. So like I knew what I was getting myself into and everything. So like they wanted me on a visit, but I really wanted to just come down here and play. Like I told them like nah, like I really don't need a visit because like I know what I'm getting myself into. But like as soon as I got here, like the people was nice. Like my first week here, I didn't even feel like the new guy. Like I would tell my dad on the phone, like I don't even feel like the new guy. They welcomed me in, and I just felt like this was home.
We saw you play a bunch of nickel against Colorado. You feel like you're finally kind of settled into that position where you might be able to step in for a guy like, let's say, Tommy, et cetera, who may have gotten injured last week?
Yes, sir. I feel more comfortable, and I feel comfortable that Hill or Kalani or just my teammates overall trust me enough to go fulfill that spot. And like just overall, like I got the defense down, so I really feel comfortable playing nickel, and it also makes playing corner easier if one of my other guys go down that corner.
What do you like most about playing a position like nickel?
So for corner, I feel like they do like a bunch of runoff routes, and then they'll throw you away after you just did like 5 deep balls. Yeah. But nickel, it's like you get to get hit. Like I don't want to just be out there running go ball. So nickel, I feel like you more in the commotion. That way you can see how I get off blocks, how I could cover guys, like the little small guys, and also tackle as well, because in the next level, they really love for DBs to tackle. Like they like that at the next level.
What is Coach Guilford like? What have you experienced with him being your position coach?
Coach, he's a really great coach. I like how he makes sure we're more mature. Like he don't coach us as if we're like younger guys. He treats everybody the same, and he loves his guys. He always making sure we're good and taking care of us. Like off the field, he's just a great person. Like I could go up to him anytime I want, tell him how I feel, and that's for everybody and all my teammates here. And also as a coach, he correct like the little things and make sure we're running to the ball. Like even if the run doesn't go our way or we just run off, he'll make sure we run to the ball. Like all the little things, he makes sure we got it down and make sure we're not just doing the bare minimum.
Looking at West Virginia this weekend, the quarterback situation unsettled for them, but their quarterbacks look a lot like what you saw with Caden Salter. Does that help you guys at all?
Yes, sir. Actually, this morning, Coach Hill preached that we didn't do a good enough job containing Salter, so we're really working on that and getting any quarterback they put in really to where he doesn't scramble or get a lot of rushing yards in general. So we're ready for any quarterback they give us.
Now, you talk about Coach Hill saying you guys need to contain better. As a nickel, you're obviously not going to be rushing up the field as often, but what can you do to help in that regard?
Just like when we go in the blitz, like I had in Colorado, make sure he don't get out the pocket or trying to get off a block, make sure I keep my outside contained.
When it looks at a team like West Virginia, traveling across country, you guys have already done this this year, going to East Carolina. How difficult is that travel?
It was real difficult. We had to leave a whole day earlier. Yeah. The time difference was crazy. Yeah. And then the flight back felt like it was like 6 hours, but it was really like 4. Yeah. Ended up getting back at like 4 in the morning, but it was difficult, but it's football, so I can't complain.
Do you think that'll affect West Virginia as they come west?
Maybe. It didn't affect us because we're us, but like West Virginia, I don't know, maybe it would. And also the altitude, that will affect them for sure.
Well, okay, you're a guy who played at sea level at different stops. You also played at Colorado, so you've experienced both. Is the elevation thing a real thing?
Yeah, it is. Yes, sir. Colorado. That's what I'm saying. When I first got here, nothing was like a new to me or culture shock because I feel like Colorado was worse. Like Colorado was like way worse. I barely could breathe. When I got out here, like as soon as I got into the summer workouts, it felt like I was still in California. Like the weather was the same. So I really got adjusted real fast to here.
Last thing for me, Tavon, is you kind of look forward here. What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do?
I want to win a national as a team. Like as a teammate in total, I want to win a national championship, first team Big 12 All-American. Obviously go to the next level and just make memories, get more connections outside of BYU, and just be the best person I could be.
Awesome. Well, Tavon, thanks for the time, man.
Thank you.
Thank you to Tavon Beasley for taking the time to join us here on the podcast. As always appreciate getting to know these athletes and letting you get to know them via my conversations with them. And a really cool story to hear him talk about his mom and the interaction she had with Gennaro Guilford and BYU, and him understanding exactly what he's getting into. And it's really helped him assimilate, he feels like, very early on in his time at BYU. But I love the goals. Wants to win a national title, wants to be an all Big 12 type performer. And I hope he gets a bigger and better opportunity to play a bigger role for BYU, whether it's at nickelback, corner, or otherwise. And cool to hear him talk about Deion Sanders behind the scenes versus the public facing persona of Coach Prime. But I also appreciate him condemning and speaking out on what was chanted, because he saw one of the guys in his room, in fact, in Evan Johnson. Now, Evan responded the right way by letting his play do the talking. Because remember, if you saw that reverse angle, I wish I could pull the video. I'm always wary of YouTube flagging this stuff, but there's a reverse angle of the student section at Colorado chanting, "Bleep you, Johnson." And Evan responds with that monster hit on the Colorado wide receiver, literally moments after this was being chanted at him. He didn't showboat and tell the crowd to be quiet. He celebrated the fact he made a big play, and I think it quieted the crowd very, very quickly. That's the way to shut up fans who may be making some fairly boorish, if not outright hateful type comments and directing it at you as an athlete. But really cool to see that. And obviously, a guy like Tavon Beasley, he knows what it's all about when it comes to playing for BYU. And like I said, I hope he gets a bigger opportunity to continue to show what he's capable of, because I thought he acquitted himself quite well stepping in for Tommy Prastis against Colorado. And we'll see how things shake out, if it becomes more of a shared playing time situation or if Tavon can take over that job full time at nickelback. It's all TBD. But as always, thank you to Tavon Beasley and thank you to BYU for arranging that interview. All right, we'll finish up today's show on the basketball front. Coming up next, FanDuel, our friends, have put out their men's basketball odds for the Big 12 Conference. Well, Kevin Young and the Cougars have a big season ahead of them. Where do they check in the hierarchy according to FanDuel? I think it's pretty high, and it actually in some cases might be a little low. I'll explain next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by, we just mentioned, FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customer at just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets used across the app or on the website. The best part about FanDuel is you can have a different way that you want to play, and it fits everybody's style, whether it's parlays, player game, in-game betting, you want to do over-unders, futures odds. No matter what you're into, FanDuel's got the options for you guys. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or love diving deep into the stats and analytics, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Once again, that's FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet. If it hits, you get $300 in bonus bets, and it's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Square. Now, Square helps run your favorite neighborhood spots because they're running on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. Obviously, all of us grew up in a different area, but you know about those institutions that have been around. Square is helping run many of them. They've been rooted in your community for years. In many instances, those businesses are what bring people together. And when the neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives along with it. The best part around BYU, you got places like J-Dogs, Black Sheep Cafe, Communal. No matter what you're into in the food scene down in Provo, which is, I think, fairly eclectic, they are all running, it seems like, on Square. So that's the best part about this, is take advantage of this, support those local businesses, and support Square in the process. You take it as an excuse to go support your favorite local spot and have yourself a day in the neighborhood. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do that, go support your neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, as they like to say, see you in the neighborhood. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you've not signed up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group, what are you waiting for? Get on it today. Get the inside scoop on all things BYU. Have your voice more heard, more fully on this podcast, because I'm not going to lie, I pay a lot more attention to my Locked On Cougars Insider Group members than any other mechanism in terms of interacting with the show. And it's nothing against social media and the like, but I love the intimate nature with the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. You're going to have one-on-one conversations via text message, pass along insider details that you won't find anywhere else. And the kicker of all of it, $5 a month to be a part of the group. And beyond that, 14 days free before you're charged a single penny. So if you want to join the Insiders Group, link is in the show notes below, or also reach out to us via social media or email, and we'll get you squared away as a newly minted member of the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. All right, if you missed it yesterday, our friends over at FanDuel, of course, a proud sponsor here on the Locked On Podcast Network, they have installed BYU as, wait for it, the number 2 team in the Big 12 heading into the 2025-2026 men's basketball season. Now, you're wondering, okay, who's in front of BYU considering they're expected to be a top 10 at worst preseason team? That would be the vaunted Houston Cougars. Now, Houston's got multiple Final Fours. Kelvin Sampson has built them into a Leviathan. BYU, for everything that we've seen from them in their first forays in the Big 12 Conference, they've had some pretty major breakthroughs, but one of the bugaboos is being able to get past the Houston Cougars. BYU will have to prove that this year if they want to climb to the top of this conference, because I think FanDuel nailed it here. They're plus 160, so far and away the favorite to win the Big 12 according to FanDuel. BYU is at number 2 at plus 420, with Texas Tech in close proximity at plus 500. Then you have Kansas at plus 800, Iowa State plus 850, and Arizona at plus 950 to win the Big 12 Conference this season. So a lot of the heavy hitters in the league, as you might imagine, are on that board. The Houston Cougars, the BYU Cougars leading the way. I actually expected, I'm not going to lie, BYU to be a little closer in terms of the overall odds to Houston than they actually are, because from plus 160 to plus 420, that's fairly significant in terms of the gap there. I understand why it exists, because as I mentioned, Houston, they have got the track record. BYU under Kevin Young looks like it's on an incredibly ascendant path that is taking off, and to use the expression we hear colloquially all the time, to the moon. But so far, BYU under Kevin Young has a Sweet 16 berth, whereas Kelvin Sampson, he's got national title game appearances. He's got multiple Final Fours. So, yeah, I understand why Houston, according to FanDuel, is the favorite until proven otherwise in the Big 12 Conference. That's the fun part about what BYU can do this season. They can go out and knock a program like Houston off their perch. That is what is out there for A.J. DeBonsa, Richie Saunders, Robert Wright III, Keba Keita, Kennard Davis Jr., all the guys on BYU's roster. That's what they've got to be monitoring here. We have seen practice clips coming forth on social media about this BYU basketball team, and we heard NBA players like Keontae George, and there were some pictures of it. I probably should have pulled this before I talked about it. It just came to my mind. But Keontae George at Utah Jazz Media Days, he was down at BYU practice, and he said he saw a dunk from AJ DeBonsa that he said essentially told him that AJ is him, to use that term. He said the person decided to jump with AJ, and DeBonsa dunked it on this player's head and did it with authority. I think it was Robbie McCombs tweeted out the pictures of said dunk. We don't actually have a video of it, but it's an absolute poster shot. And that shows you what NBA players like who am I thinking of? Keontae George believe that AJ DeBonsa is absolutely everything that he's vaunted to be. If he is that, BYU is going to have a very, very good shot to win the Big 12 Conference, to be at worst a 2 seed, it feels like, in the NCAA tournament. Heck, making a run at the Final Four. AJ said it himself that the floor for BYU this year, Sweet 16. That's pretty incredible considering BYU has three Sweet 16s in the past 40-ish years, if my math is correct. They did it once with Danny Ainge, obviously making the Elite Eight. Jimmer Fredette did it, and then last year making the Sweet 16. It's not been territory BYU's been very accustomed to seeing. Now, would Cougar fans, yours truly included, like to see BYU make deeper runs in the NCAA tournament? Abso-freaking-lutely. But the bigger point to be had here is BYU is considered to be one of the favorites in the Big 12, but they have ground to make up to chase down what appears to be the front runner in the Houston Cougars. The talent is there for BYU. It's undeniable. John Rothstein was here last week, and he said that he believes that a guy like Richie Saunders with AJ DeBonsa, Robert Wright III, and the other cast of characters around him could make 100 threes this season in the Big 12 and for BYU. 100 3-pointers, let's say conservatively, that's across 40 games. That's a lot of made 3-pointers because the attempts, if you're an elite 3-point shooter, you're in the 40% range. That means you're missing more than you're making more often than not. That's a lot of threes to get up and a lot of threes to be made. But if that's what Richie Saunders is capable of, man, I'm looking forward to seeing what BYU can accomplish as a team, because that means there's going to be guys like DeBonsa who are going to go out there and absolutely ball out. I have got full faith and belief that Kevin Young, he knows exactly what he's doing at the helm of this BYU basketball program. He has aspirations of taking BYU basketball to heights hitherto never experienced by BYU or Cougar fans. And there's a reason why the tickets sold out so quickly they did to the Marriott Center. Now, some of you may say there's some shenanigans that went on with that. Yeah, there probably were, but the long and short of it is the Marriott Center, it's going to be a place to be this coming basketball season. BYU sport in general is a place to be right now. Football's rocking and rolling. Basketball looks like on the men's side of things is going to be absolute downright elite, and it's going to be a fun season ahead. I love the fact that the FanDuel folks are giving some respect to BYU, but also providing motivation along the way. They're saying, hey, you're pretty good, it looks like on paper, but you got to chase down those other guys, the other Cougars, the Red Cougars in your own league to prove that you are top cat, top dog, whatever term you want to utilize here. I'm looking forward to it. I have said it before on this podcast. For those of you who are everydayers, and I'll say it right now again, I very, very rarely want to wish away college football season, because college football, it's my bread and butter. It is my favorite sport by far. I think if you're a longtime listener to this podcast, you know that college football is where I'm in most of my element. But watching BYU basketball this past season accomplish what they accomplished and looking at what they have on paper right now, I'm eager to get to the start of the college basketball season and see what they're capable of. I think we're under 5 weeks from tip-off as BYU will be in Las Vegas to take on Villanova on opening night. They've got an absolutely electric non-conference slate. And if I had more means to do so, I would love to travel to all these different venues and see these teams BYU is going to play in basketball. Are they going to absorb some losses in the non-conference? Inevitably. If they don't, that team very well may be a national title contender if they do sail through the non-conference slate, because they have scheduled up to a level that I don't think many non-conference slates in BYU history are going to even approach what BYU has on their plate in the non-conference. And then we all know what the Big 12 looks like as a league. It's a bear trap. It is every single night. If you don't bring your A game, you can get upset. And I'm talking from the bottom tier teams to the top of the top that BYU is expected to be. You got to bring it every single night, because this is a conference. It is rough, it's rugged, and it's going to test your absolute limits. And BYU, they got to be ready for all of it. And I'm looking forward to it. We'll see how it all shakes out. But I look forward to seeing how BYU competes in this league, because I do think that our friends at FanDuel gave BYU plenty of motivation, but also installed them rightfully as one of the favorites in this league, because Kevin Young, he's put together a pretty downright elite squad on paper. Now they got to go prove it on the court. And early indications are that BYU will indeed be doing just that. And should they succeed, obviously, in doing what they have done to this point, that means BYU, they're going to be a national story all season long. I've been hearing about how tickets and whatnot played out. Yeah. The story, it's already being written about what BYU could be this season. Now we actually need to see it play out before our very eyes, and hopefully it has the outcome we're all hoping for along the way. All right, that is going to do it for today's edition of the podcast. Truthfully, thank you for all of your support of this venture. I strive to bring the best I can every single day to this show, and I think it's showing with the response that we have gotten in the last few days, but even beyond that, essentially this year, 2025, been pretty incredible for the growth of this podcast. So from the bottom of my heart, as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars a part of your day. In fact, your first listen of the day. Hope all of you subscribe to that, but also hope you guys are everydayers checking this podcast out on the daily, and come back tomorrow. Have a great chat. Mountaineer Paul, one of my favorite dudes in the Big 12 squad. He's got an interesting backstory, but with West Virginia and BYU squaring off, I could not let the opportunity to catch up with my guy MP to talk about BYU and West Virginia. You'll hear that tomorrow right here on the podcast. And do want to remind you guys before we go, it's another big moment for Locked On. You want to check out Locked On and Fire TV's presentation of College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll, our good friend from Locked On Big 12, is leading the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Hawley, and of course, Locked On's local experts. A college football preview like only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season only on Fire TV. All right, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and come back tomorrow right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.